John had always been a solitary man, never married, no children. He retired and decided to explore the world, his German shepherd, Bear, as his only companion. But neither of them were prepared for the harsh realities of the Alaskan wilderness. He had always loved the outdoors, but he had never imagined just how brutal the wilderness could be. John and his faithful dog had been hiking through the mountains for days when an out-of-season cold front hit, bringing a blizzard in its wake. The snow was so thick that John could barely see his own hand in front of his face. The wind was so strong that it threatened to knock him off his feet. John knew that he needed to find shelter, and fast. He tried to follow the trail markers, but they were covered in snow. He tried to use his compass, but the cold and ice froze the lens cover shut. He was lost. But John was a survivor. He had always been resourceful, and he knew that he had to keep moving if he wanted to live. He wrapped himself in his blanket and trudged through the snow, with Bear by his side. Hours passed, and John's energy began to wane. He was cold, hungry, and exhausted. But he refused to give up. He knew that Bear was depending on him. Suddenly, he spotted a small cabin in the distance through the forest. He could barely believe his luck. He picked up his pace and ran towards the cabin with Bear close behind him. As he approached the cabin, he quickly realized that it was abandoned. The door was unlocked, and he stepped inside. The cabin was small and bare, but it was warm and dry. John quickly built a fire and began to thaw his frozen hands and equipment, huddling Bear by his side as the sun set. But their respite was short-lived. They soon realized that they were not alone in the wilderness. Wild howls filled the air, Bear's hair standing on his back, John beginning to fear wolves were hunting them. John knew that they were in danger. He grabbed his revolver and circled to window after window, waiting for the wolves to attack. Bear barked and growled, ready to defend his master. The howls came closer until John and Bear could hear the snarls and yelps of the pack communicating. Then, just as John was beginning to let his guard down, the wind blew the old cabin door open and Bear went charging outside to fight back the wolves. John rushing after his dog, revolver in hand, when he caught up to Bear, he was surrounded by 3 wolves, barking and sounding like a war dog. John raised his weapon, the moonlight reflecting off the snow illuminating the target. Firing 2 rounds and bringing down the wolf closest to him, the second wolf fleeing into the wilderness, but the third, Bear had latched onto and was in a fight for survival. John ran to his companion, afraid to take a shot. He joined in the fight, finally throwing the wolf off Bear, raising his pistol and dropping the animal with one shot. John immediately went to Bear, making sure he wasn't wounded, the dog simply standing up and shaking the snow off his fur and stared inquisitively at him. John picked up the dead wolf and carried it back to the cabin. The night went on and the duo sat by the fire, enjoying the meat of their fresh kill. The blizzard began to subside as the hours went by. The wind died down, and the snow stopped falling. Morning had come and John and Bear were safe once again. John and Bear emerged from the cabin, blinking in the bright sunlight. They were battered and bruised, but they had survived. They continued their journey through the Alaskan wilderness, stronger and more resilient than ever before. As they continued their journey, John knew that they couldn't let their guard down. They had survived the blizzard and the wolf attack, but the wilderness still had plenty of challenges in store for them. The terrain was rough and unforgiving, with steep cliffs and icy rivers. John and Bear had to navigate through it all, relying on each other, their instincts and survival skills to make it through. They hunted for their food, catching fish from the rivers and foraging for edible plants. They set up camp each night, building a fire and shelter to keep warm. But despite the hardships, John and Bear found a sense of peace in the wilderness. They were free from the stresses of civilization, and they could fully embrace the natural world around them. A month had passed, and John and Bear became hardened by their experiences in the Alaskan wilderness. They had survived against all odds, and they were stronger for it. One day, they stumbled upon a small town in the mountains. The villagers welcomed them with open arms, amazed by their tale of survival. John and Bear had become legends in their own right, living proof that even in the harshest of conditions, the human spirit could endure. John decided to stay in the village, living out the rest of his days among the people who had welcomed him in. Bear became a beloved fixture in the village, known for his loyalty and bravery. In the end, John knew that he had found a home in the Alaskan wilderness. He had come looking for adventure, but he had found something much more valuable, a sense of belonging and purpose in the natural world. And he knew that he had his faithful dog, Bear, to thank for helping him find it.